What's up everyone, welcome to today's video, welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Today we're going to be zooming out and taking a broader look on the changing landscape of the console ecosystem, the way the hardware market in terms of PlayStation and Xbox has changed, and how both publishers and even manufacturers of consoles approach things. We leave out Nintendo in this conversation simply because Nintendo has always been its own thing for the most part, and the PlayStation and Xbox war, in a sense, had been raging on since Sega kind of walked out of the entire conversation. Now, let's go ahead and look at this very interesting question that had been posed in the last few years, which has been, do you need an Xbox to actually enjoy what Xbox has to offer to be able to play Xbox games? The answer to that since 2016 has been no. In fact, that answer was established the moment around that time Xbox decided that it was going to take its full slate to PC. So when we put that standard and we measured Xbox by that, it was already prevalent. And then after Game Pass and all of what Xbox was doing, trying to open up its platform, it was for sure going to be the standard for them. And now we come to this time where we can ask the same question about PlayStation, but it seems like no one really wants to measure PlayStation on that same standard. But I think it's important because if we do so, we get a really good view of the market. So the question now goes, do you need a PlayStation to actually play or enjoy the games on PlayStation or engage in its platform? And the answer to that right now is also no. Simply because the same thing that made the answer no for Xbox, which was PC, the wild card, is now the same thing that makes the answer no for PlayStation, this same wild card, PC. Let's do a quick overview. We're going to look at PlayStation and we're going to look at Xbox's games on Steam. The reason I do this is because we want to basically go ahead and actually deal with the hardware specifications, because this is usually an argument that comes up on the PlayStation side. So here's PlayStation, right? And here is Xbox. These are their games that are published on Steam. We'll look at the hardware survey for Steam, and we're going to look at the GPU most used, 3060. If we click and look at the second highest GPU used, it's the 1650. These details are going to come out very important here in a bit, so hang with me here. We look at the RAM in terms of the highest user base of, their RAM capacity. It's 16 gigs, and their CPUs are usually 6-core CPUs, or they go up to 8, and that's, I think, one of the other higher numbers that you see. You also see 4-core CPUs under 20% range. So any developer that's making a game on PC has to look at these numbers and scale their games to most gamers that have 4-core CPUs all the way through about 8-core CPUs, because anything more, well, no one's really using that. And then they have to basically be able to channel their games to be supported by the RTX 3060, or they need to go as low as a 1650. Sometimes they go lower and they're able to rake in more users when it comes to that. Why did I share this? I shared this simply because if you look at Xbox's titles on PC, we can look at their PC requirements, which also gives this particular argument a little bit more credence that you don't need an Xbox, because the developers are going to channel their game to be able to meet you where you are. Basically, you can take in, say, a CPU like the i5-8400, which is in the 4-core to 6-core to 8-core range. That's the Ryzen 5 2600 is actually in the 6-core category as the minimum requirement. And then for your GPU, the GTX 1070 or the RX 5700, which is underneath the 3060. And then when you go to the recommended specs, because this game is a little bit more tasking, in order for you to be able to run shaders and a lot of the texture quality, they're asking 3080 or 6800 XT, which are really beefy cards. But you're still not locked out. And look at these specs. These specs are actually slightly lower than the Xbox Series X. You see exactly what might be going on here with these conversations. You see what these publishers are doing. They're channeling their games to where the PC gamer already is. Xbox is not wanting you to go get a high, brow machine. They're making you a game that can run on a 1060. This is Forza, a game that can run on an i5-8400 or a Ryzen 5 1600, which is a 6-core CPU, or 4-core CPU, sorry. And they know the Steam numbers have more of these 4-core, 6-core, and 8-core CPU users, so they're not demanding anything of you. So even Forza is asking you, hey man, even with your potato, and even though I won't call those potatoes, but in today's day and age, with the advancement of stuff, they're basically potatoes compared to what you can get in the market, in today's, day and age. You can still play a lot of these games. These games most of them ran on the Xbox One. So your PC at this time, that's actually less than your Xbox Series X, is better than the Xbox One in terms of hardware. So you don't need an Xbox to play Xbox games. Now let's move to PlayStation. Because the conversation with PlayStation had been somewhat different as well, because PlayStation had been putting a lot of these metrics like 4K, 120 FPS, even though some of it has been checkerboard and some other upscaling techniques. We also can look very carefully at a game like God of War Ragnarok and look at its PC requirements. It is cross-platform. It's on PS4 and also on PS5, so don't be surprised when you see that the PC requirements when they come out are going to be basically, PC components that actually are close to what we used to use to beat the PS4 back in the day. There's nothing announced yet, but I wanted to go ahead and caveat that immediately. However, a game like Ghost of Tsushima that just came out, when you look at its PC requirements, you'll see that its minimum requirement is a i3-7100, which is basically a 4-core CPU for the most part, I think. The i3s are in the 4-core range. Then you look at the Ryzen 3 1200 and the 8 gigs of RAM, which is even lower than the 16 gig RAM, which is, what many of the PC users have, and a GTX 960 or an AMD RX 5500 XT. In the recommended settings, you're on the 2060, 5600 XT, i5-8600 or Ryzen 5 3600, still way below the specs that you actually see majority of gamers who are here on the PC platform using. A game like Horizon Forbidden West also brings you its own PC requirements, and you will notice as well the 1650. Do you all remember the 1650? The 1650 is basically the second in place in terms of how many of these Steam users are using that hardware. So PlayStation is actually not only targeting but also channeling where majority of its gamers on Steam and on a PC platform can actually run these games, which you actually are running them on the PS5 with slightly, in quote, better hardware. But on the PC side, you can run them with actually less powerful hardware, because intentionally PlayStation and its developers are actually porting to meet these players exactly where they are. We can continue to go with other games like The Last of Us Part 1, Returnal, Marvel Spider-Man, Miles Morales. Let's look at the game like Miles Morales, which is basically one of the more, I would say better looking games that you can find on PlayStation. And you will see again the GTX 950 or the RX 470. Man, this is old school scrapyard components right there, bro. I mean, this is like tomato, but this is not even potato level. Like, this is literally what is another high carbohydrate food that you can actually connect probes into to run or give you electric charges. Literally, these are basically going to give you the best bang for buck if you do anything better than this, and you'll be able to run a game like Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. So in a technical sense, you do not need a PlayStation to play PlayStation games. Even though the PlayStation has better hardware than what some of these data sets are showing from the Steam user base, PlayStation Studios are going to port their games and they're going to meet the PC gamer where the PC gamer is. This is the reality that actually has now beset the market, and it's all changed. And for the most part, it seemed like Xbox was actually taking an L when they were doing this, but PlayStation is doing this simply because software sales are also a viable and significant source of income when it comes to video game sales. And as a platform holder and as a publisher, you have to continue to get money flowing into your coffers, which means you'll have to meet gamers where they are. So Phil Spencer basically bragging about, I want to basically let gamers do whatever they want and, without any scummy practices. He's just basically talking to the choir, because PlayStation is already doing the exact same thing, which is good. I don't like exclusivity, and I think it makes sense that if PlayStation wants to actually compete, they need to actually start bringing this particular window much closer and much closer. I've seen a lot of people who are fans say, well, if they continue to bring their games much closer and closer, it's going to harm their platform. No, it's not. They're taking extra time to ensure that the games that are coming from their platform are reaching the PC community, because the PC community is a viable market where they can sell their games. I mean, we're going to be seeing here, being published by PlayStation Publishing, the Lego Horizon game, which is actually a day and date game coming very soon. After all that talk of them not bringing their single player titles, we have not only this one, we also have Until Dawn, which is also a single player title that's coming day and date. So we can't necessarily, think that PlayStation is only going to, follow this old school thinking and old school mentality. They need to farm dollars, and the dollars, they exist here on the PC platform. So I expect to see the competition bring its head over here, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, because it's very interesting at the end of the day. Thanks so much for watching the video. I really appreciate you guys' time and audience, and let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Peace out.